The chandelier light didn't just illuminate the room, it refracted off Elena's moral compass, pin like a localized sun, blinding anyone who dared to look too closely. This was the silver anniversary of the Heritage Trust, a night designed to celebrate 30 years of unshakable family values. Elena stood at the podium, the very image of curated perfection in a dress that whispered of quiet luxury and loud influence. She wasn't just the host, she was the deity of this gala, her voice a soothing cello melody, as she spoke of sacred legacies and the burden of integrity. The crowd leaned in, intoxicated by the perfume of old money and the comfort of her practiced lies. But beneath the velvet floorboards of her performance, a digital fuse had already been lit. As she raised a vintage crystal flute to toast our shared future, her hand didn't shake, not yet. She still believed her victim shield was impenetrable. She didn't see me standing in the periphery, not with a glass, but with a tablet that held the thermal death of her reputation. In Justice Valley, the brightest lights always cast the longest shadows, and Elena was about to find out that a pedestal is just a high-altitude place to fall. To understand the height of Elena's fall, you have to understand the sheer scale of the scaffolding she built to support her ego. Her deception wasn't a single lie, it was a sprawling, multi-story estate of psychological warfare. She was a virtuoso of the soft kill, a method that required no physical weapons, only a steady stream of weaponized empathy. In the family group chats, she was the weeping martyr, using tear-streaked selfies and cryptic scriptures to paint herself as the lonely guardian of a dying flame. She didn't attack her enemies directly, she simply prayed for them in public while slandering them in private, leaking out of context screenshots, like slow-acting poison into the social feeds of our extended circle. By the time the gala arrived, she had successfully isolated anyone with the spine to question her, labeling them unstable or lost. She had curated a world where her word was the only currency that held value, convincing the board that her expensive taste was merely the necessary overhead of a moral architect. She mistook our silence for a white flag, never realizing that in Justice Valley, we don't interrupt a performance artist while they are building their own gallows. She thought she was constructing a legacy, in reality, she was just furnishing a crime scene. While Elena was busy curating the optics of her persecuted saint persona, I was descending into the digital vaults where her polished narrative began to dissolve into cold, hard pixels. I didn't need a platform, I needed a ledger. The investigation was a surgical excavation, peeling back the layers of administrative overhead and consulting fees that Elena had used as a shroud for her systematic greed. I treated every bank statement like a DNA sample, cross-referencing the family trust's outflows with the geolocation data of her private shopping excursions. The data revealed a chilling pattern of siphoning, a financial hemorrhage that matched the rhythm of her most pious social media posts. While she was publicly mourning the betrayal of the family's security, she was privately wire transferring that security into a web of ghost companies and offshore accounts. Every luxury retreat she disguised as a wellness seminar was documented here, stripped of its flowery descriptions, and reduced to an unauthorized withdrawal. I matched her shopping therapy timestamps with the exact moments she claimed the accounts were hacked. It was a felony captured in high definition. In Justice Valley, emotions are just noise, but the numbers, they are the ultimate witnesses. And these numbers were ready to testify. The temperature in the ballroom didn't just drop, it underwent a total thermal collapse. Elena was mid-sentence, her hands clasped in a gesture of practiced humility, as she began the verdict of victimhood portion of her speech. She was prepared to name me as the source of the family's misfortune, her eyes already glistening with the pseudo-victim tears she had rehearsed for weeks. But before she could deliver the killing blow, I tapped a single key on the control console. The commemorative slideshow of family values vanished, replaced by the spreadsheet of fire. The room went deathly silent as a forensic audit, projected in 40-foot high definition, began to scroll. The forged signatures on the ghost company contracts were unmistakable, their jagged lines contrasting sharply with the elegant calligraphy on the gala's programs. I didn't say a word, I simply let the data narrate her downfall. When the video play button was hit, showing Elena, at a private teller window depositing the missing $600,000, her lawyer didn't even look at her. He simply closed his briefcase with a sharp, final snap and walked out. Elena's mask didn't just slip, it shattered, leaving her standing at the center of a stage that had transformed into a witness stand. The end didn't arrive with the dramatic flourish Elena had rehearsed for her own fake tragedies, it arrived with the heavy, hollow thud of a vault closing forever. As the forensic files were handed to the authorities, the room didn't erupt in shouting, it simply emptied. It was a collective, silent excommunication, a social vacuum that left her standing alone in the center of the ballroom, stripped of the influence she had spent decades siphoning from our names. Her husband didn't offer a parting argument or a final glance, he merely placed a single set of divorce papers on the mahogany podium, his expression as vacant as the accounts she had bled dry. This was the absolute zero, a total cessation of her social and familial existence. In the weeks that followed, the moral architect became a cautionary ghost story, a name whispered to warn others of the cost of hubris. I watched from the window as she loaded the last of her designer luggage into a car that was no longer hers, her once regal posture reduced to a frantic, hollow shell. She looked up one last time, desperate for a spark of my anger to validate her victimhood. But I gave her nothing. No hatred, no triumph, just the cold, unwavering stare of a ledger that had finally reached its balance. In Justice Valley, the most lethal blow isn't the verdict, it's the silence that follows when the monster is finally, irrevocably gone. The victory in this valley isn't found in the noise of the gavel, but in the restoration of a peace that was once stolen. Elena learned too late that a throne built on deception is just a trapdoor waiting for the weight of the truth to become unbearable. The ledger is closed, the accounts are settled, and the moral architect is now just a footnote in a history she can no longer rewrite. Remember, your silence isn't a white flag, it's a recording. In Justice Valley, the truth doesn't just surface, it enforces itself. Every debt is eventually paid in full.